At the age of 28, I married an ambitious man and we started a business together. But as soon as the company took off, my husband Jimmy began having affairs with younger women, eventually setting me up to divorce. With the help of my journalist sister Noelle, I decided to fight back against my ex-husband Jimmy and reclaim the company. My name is Rita. I married Jimmy, who is 2 years younger than me, when I was 28. We divorced 2 years ago when I was 38. Now I'm 40. We don't have any children. Jimmy, my ex-husband of 10 years, was ambitious from the moment we met. I loved hearing him talk about his dreams and wanted to chase those dreams by his side. Looking back, I realize I didn't have a good eye for men. He said he would start his own business and become a CEO, and he picked up business skills from various seminars and entrepreneur meetups. Soon after we got married, he launched a membership-based delivery service focusing on organic vegetables. During the pandemic, demand for delivery services skyrocketed, and with the rising interest in eco-friendly and sustainable practices, our business thrived from the start. The service delivered imperfect but perfectly edible fruits and vegetables at a low cost, benefiting both farmers and consumers. Many people liked the idea of helping out farmers by buying these imperfect products. While it hurt to see scammers taking advantage of people's kindness, I believe most people are naturally trusting. My sister Noelle, who has a strong sense of justice, was furious about the rise in scams that preyed on people's kindness. So I supported his business and helped him out. We traveled across the country, visiting farms and listening to the farmers. Back then, Jimmy genuinely seemed to want to be the bridge between farmers and consumers, and he developed close relationships with many farmers. They would send us fresh produce and heartfelt thank you letters, which made me happy and gave me a sense of purpose. We didn't have children, so the company felt like our baby. We started from scratch, and while it was tough, seeing it grow brought us joy. But as the company grew and our profits increased, our marriage began to fall apart. Jimmy started going out drinking for business and pleasure, coming home smelling of strong perfume. You want kids, right? But you're already 35. I'm still 33, maybe I should start over with a woman in her 20s. He started saying things like that when he came home drunk, and it hurt me deeply. Eventually, he did start having affairs with younger women. Outwardly, we maintained the appearance of a happily married business couple, but inside, our marriage was completely broken. My sister Noelle is 3 years younger than me and works as a magazine journalist. Whereas I am calm and easygoing, Noelle is assertive and always speaks her mind. Just divorce him already. It's so unfair to you, Rita, after all the struggles you've been through together. I hate guys who dump their longtime partners for younger women the moment they get successful. She said this to me during a recent meal together. Rita, you played a huge role in the success of the company. Now that it's doing well, he's just getting cocky. I was already thinking about divorce, even before Noelle said anything. Then something happened. Jimmy asked me to meet with a new business partner and discuss a deal. He told me. It's an important client, so I booked a fancy restaurant. He had said, and indeed, it was a high-end hotel restaurant. A man showed up alone, and we started talking business over dinner, but the conversation was vague. He was very charming, and I found myself drinking more than usual. I can hold my liquor quite well. You sure can handle your liquor. How about we move to the bar? He suggested. At that point, I was only slightly tipsy. But the next thing I knew, I woke up in a hotel room, lying on the bed. I jumped up and checked myself. My clothes were still intact, and I was alone. My head was pounding. This was strange. I had never felt this way from drinking before. This is definitely not right. Rita, you can really hold your liquor. Maybe you were drugged? But you weren't assaulted or anything, right? I would know if something like that happened. Ugh. Maybe I'm just getting weaker with age. Come on, Rita. This isn't the time to be so relaxed. Noelle scolded me, but I knew I had nothing to hide. When I asked Jimmy about the man from the meeting, he claimed to know nothing about his private life. Pretty handsome, wasn't he? Did you enjoy yourself? He said, making a sleazy comment. One day, Jimmy suddenly handed me a completed divorce application form. Along with the form, he gave me a sealed envelope. Inside, there were multiple photos of me with the man from the meeting. Photos of us having dinner, toasting at the bar, and walking into the hotel room. What is this? In the photo taken at the hotel room, I was leaning against the man. Looks like you had a good time. Since you're a cheating woman, we have no choice but to divorce. I won't ask for any alimony in the divorce settlement. Jimmy said this with a disgusting smile. Even I, in my naivety, finally realized what was going on. This was his plan all along. How else would these photos exist? If the divorce was due to Jimmy's infidelity, I would certainly seek alimony. To avoid that, he fabricated evidence to make it look like we were both cheating. What a petty man. I couldn't believe he had become so dishonorable and unworthy of respect. No way! Did you just sign the divorce papers and walk away? What he did is criminal. You should sue him. We can even use my company's lawyer. Noelle yelled in disbelief. The magazine Noelle works for is known for its hard-hitting scoops on celebrities and politics, so they frequently work with lawyers. It's fine. I didn't want to stay with him any longer. Getting divorced felt liberating. Rita, you're always like this. Either you lack ambition or you make bold moves. Noelle sighed but treated me to a nice meal. My parents didn't blame me for getting divorced at nearly 40. Mom even seemed somewhat relieved, saying, Noelle isn't showing any signs of getting married, and Rita's getting divorced. Oh, my daughters. After our divorce, Jimmy quickly remarried a 23-year-old who had just graduated from college. She wasn't particularly beautiful, but she came from a good family and seemed docile. He was featured in a Rising Young Entrepreneurs segment by a colleague. I can't do it because I'm too recognizable. That guy is slick and talks a good game, so he probably easily fooled that naive girl. Noelle said, looking genuinely angry. Recently, Jimmy's business has been thriving with diet supplements and health foods. He's flooding the internet with ads, but they're all super shady. Like, lose 10 pounds in 10 days diet pills. If that really worked, humanity would go extinct. But people still buy them, hoping for a miracle. I've seen Noelle herself try a few of those beauty supplements. But more importantly, Rita, the organic vegetable delivery service you and Jimmy started is getting bad reviews lately. Lots of 1-star ratings. I was concerned about that too. After the divorce, I also left the company, so I couldn't do anything about it and felt frustrated. According to Noelle, Jimmy said, organic vegetable delivery is just a low-margin charity business. Of course, selling ineffective diet supplements on a subscription basis is easier money. I wondered how the farmers we worked with were doing. When I left the business after the divorce, I sent them farewell letters, and they were all very supportive and concerned. I feared that we might be betraying their trust. While I was worrying about this, I received forwarded mail. It was a plea, like an internal whistleblower's letter, addressed to me personally. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 letters. Over 20 letters came from farmers, filled with desperate messages. Vegetables are living things. They're affected by the weather, and their quality can vary. That's why I always kept in close contact with the farmers, monitoring the growth of the vegetables. If the scheduled produce wasn't ready, I'd get help from other farmers, fostering a network where they supported each other. After I left, he shifted his focus to other ventures and seemed to lose his passion for the organic vegetable delivery service we had worked so hard to build. He stopped contacting the farmers, only dealing with them in a bureaucratic manner, and even demanded lower purchasing prices. Quality control and customer service deteriorated, and more customers were canceling their subscriptions. It was painful to know that my divorce had caused so much trouble and suffering for many people. Seeing the company I had nurtured like my own child fall into such a terrible state was unbearable. One day, when I was feeling particularly down, Noelle took me out shopping to cheer me up. As we left my favorite store, we ran into a familiar face. "Jimmy, can't afford a vacation, so you're shopping here instead?" It's sad to see a divorced, unmarried, broke old woman shopping with another woman. Jimmy sneered as soon as he saw us. Noelle and Jimmy had always disliked each other. Noelle had said from the beginning, "If you love him, I'll accept it, but I don't trust that guy." While Jimmy called Noelle a tough, uncharming, and arrogant woman. "Well, if it isn't my former brother-in-law. Shouldn't you be busy running your company instead of shopping leisurely?" Noelle's sudden remark seemed to surprise Jimmy. "What?" "I heard the business you and Rita started isn't doing so well." "Oh, that company? I don't care about it anymore. It's not making much money anyway. There are plenty of other businesses that are more profitable." Jimmy's words cut like a knife. "More profitable businesses? You mean those shady health supplements and diet pills? You're still as rude as ever. No wonder you can't get married." "Huh. Ever heard of the pen is mightier than the sword? Enjoy your success while you can." When she smirked, Jimmy scoffed. "Oh my. The jealousy of poor people." He shrugged his shoulders and walked away. The following week, Noelle's magazine published an online exposé about Jimmy's new business. Luxury supplements and health foods, the shady products targeting wealthy women. Though it didn't name him directly, anyone in the know could figure it out. It turned out Jimmy had used his new young wife's connections to sell repackaged, ordinary supplements and health foods at exorbitant prices to wealthy women. I decided to act in sync with the article's release. The company Jimmy and I started was a privately held corporation, and I still owned some shares. A significant portion of the shareholders were the farmers who supported us. I visited each farmer, explained the situation, and asked for their cooperation. They had invested in our company, believing in our vision and seeing mutual benefits. There was no doubt that the current situation worried them. The trust we had built over the years played a significant role. Most people were more than willing to help me. As a result, at the shareholders' meeting, Jimmy's dismissal was decided. With the proxy votes included, I held the majority of the shares, and there was an urgent need to address the company's rapid decline. Jimmy was quickly ousted from the company. I became the new CEO. "Fine, take the damn company. I'm so happy to leave it to you," he had said, but he clearly hadn't expected Noelle's exposé. With the web version's reach, it spread quickly. Jimmy's young wife, part of the social media generation, saw it and told her parents. Her dad was furious upon learning the truth. Of course, he was. He had used their daughter for his fraudulent schemes. It tarnished their family's reputation. "I thought he had potential, but I was terribly mistaken." Her parents swiftly took her back and arranged a divorce. Her parents felt sorry for the people who had trusted their daughter and bought the products, So they hosted a lavish party inviting friends, acquaintances, and those who had been deceived. Sympathy poured in for their naive daughter who had been fooled by a bad man, and it seemed everyone blamed Jimmy for the whole situation. "Oh, this is so satisfying. That man won't be able to start a new company anytime soon, at least not until the scandal blows over. Not that I'll ever let it blow over. I'll never forgive him for calling me an old woman," Noelle said, downing her beer in one go. I was thrilled to have regained control of the company and ordered another beer. Though it would be a challenge to regain the lost trust in customers, I was determined to rebuild with the employees who were genuinely happy to have me back. Later, it was discovered that Jimmy's cheaply imported diet supplements contained pharmaceutical ingredients, causing health issues, and he was arrested. He received a suspended sentence, but the lawsuits and divorce settlements left him penniless, and he ended up doing manual labor to pay off his debts. He once called me, asking for help. "Hey, I owe you nothing," I replied coldly and hung up. When the company finally started to stabilize, Noelle and I invited our parents for a weekend trip. Relaxing in a spacious jacuzzi, we enjoyed the starry sky. Mom sighed contentedly. "It's nice to soak in a jacuzzi with my two daughters. This wouldn't happen if you were married." "Well, marriage isn't the only path to happiness," Noelle said, glancing at me. "Yes, I'm sorry for worrying you both." I apologized to them. Mom and Noelle smiled warmly. "Dad should join us," Noelle said. "We'll pour drinks for him when we're done." After the jacuzzi, a luxurious meal and delicious drinks awaited us. Your background may be humble, but I'll tolerate it. In return, after marriage, you'll need to quit your job and fully support Kevin in his political career. From a rural bakery to the wife of a politician. You've got quite the luck. Is being a politician such a prestigious job that you can look down on others? Absolutely. I mean, it's a politician we're talking about. Wait, what's the matter? Today was an important day, a family meeting. However, Nicholas and Rachel, my father-in-law and mother-in-law, believed that being a politician was the highest honor and openly looked down on us who ran a rural bakery. My mother, Stella, who was usually calm, had become enraged after our store and I were insulted. "Hey! What do you think you're doing?" My mother poured water over the business card Nicholas had given her and forcefully placed the glass back on the table. The photo of Nicholas on the business card was now wet. My mother glared at him. She was effectively saying that this was the same as throwing water in his face. I was shocked to see my usually gentle mother do something like this. However, she didn't seem to have lost her composure. In truth, I believe she wanted to splash them directly with the water. But doing so would have put her at risk of being charged with assault. That's why she targeted the business card instead. Even just tearing up a business card in front of someone is quite disrespectful. Splashing water on it was practically an invitation to a fight. Naturally, my in-laws were furious. However, my mother seemed equally enraged. "Your bakery supplies products for local events, doesn't it? I'll have them all pulled. Watch your business crumble and regret it. Have you been a member of this town for generations?" "What is that?" "You don't seem to know my ancestors." "What? Who cares about the ancestors of a little bakery? Unless it's a shop with over 100 years of history, a small, insignificant bakery has no right to boast. This is the first time I've been treated with such disrespect. I'll definitely destroy your store. Don't think you can do business around here anymore." "Is that so? Well then, I'll make sure you lose your position as politicians." I don't think my mother's words are lies. I'm sure she really intends to take away the political position from my in-laws. I am Ashley. I'm 28 years old and helping with my family's bakery. Since our bakery is located in the countryside, people often think it must be a historic bakery. However, that's not the case, and our bakery isn't that old. Although it has a short history, it is quite famous as a local souvenir and popular at local events. Therefore, despite being a countryside bakery, we don't have much trouble running it. At 28, I find countryside life to be quite pleasant, like an old person, and I am satisfied with my life in this familiar land since childhood. The only complaint I had was the lack of encounters, but that has been resolved. Although we are not yet married, my boyfriend Kevin recently proposed to me. I plan to announce it after the family meeting is over, so I am holding back from blurting it out when talking to regular customers at the store. Kevin and I have known each other since kindergarten. Of course, at that time, we were not conscious of romance or marriage, and we didn't become particularly close afterward. We attended the same school until middle school, but then went to different high schools, and I heard through the grapevine that Kevin left the countryside to attend university. Since then, he had faded from my memory. However, about 2 years ago, we met again by chance. Hey, could you be Kevin? Huh? Don't you remember? We went to the same school from kindergarten to middle school. I'm Ashley. Oh, from the bakery. Kevin and I were not particularly close friends. However, having been together for such a long time from kindergarten to middle school, I strangely recognized him. We approached each other, searching for traces of our younger selves, and then caught up on each other's lives. Did you take over the bakery? I didn't, but my grandparents retired, so now my mom runs the shop and I help out. What about you, Kevin? After graduating from university, I worked in sales, but my dad told me to come back. Did something happen? Nothing in particular, but he wants me to become a politician, so he intends to make me study from now on. Isn't your dad a politician? Yes, my dad, my granddad, and his dad too. We are a family of politicians. That's amazing. So, you're going to become a politician soon too? I don't know if it'll be soon. For now, I'm planning to look for a sales job around here. You don't seem very keen on it. I'd rather not become one. Because I've seen a lot of my parents' stuff. I want to work and live freely. Why don't you tell him that? It's impossible to go against my dad. Politics is such a closed world, you know? So even now, there's this belief in my house that my father's word is law. In the countryside, those values are still deeply rooted. We were so happy to see each other after such a long time that we ended up talking for a long time. Since this is the countryside, all other acquaintances had left. So, I felt delighted to see an old friend after such a long time. Kevin probably felt reassured to meet a familiar face right after returning home. A reunion with a childhood friend in our hometown. Both of us 26 years old and at the right age. Neither of us had a significant other. With all these conditions met, it would be hard not to follow this path. We started keeping in touch, gradually growing closer as friends for about a year, and then started dating. About a year after dating, he proposed to me, which was just the other day. And today, Kevin is coming to my house for a family meeting. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me. You went to middle school with Ashley, right? Think of me as a friend's mom and feel free to relax. Since I was meeting her as part of a family meeting, that seemed difficult. My mom said this with a smile at the door, but Kevin's face was tense. However, my mom, who runs a shop, has great communication skills. She's also gentle and approachable. Once we were guided to the living room and started talking, Kevin relaxed in about 10 minutes. You run a shop, that's impressive. It's not just my effort. I get help from Ashley, the staff, and many others. No, the shop runs because of your energy, right? You're always working hard and running around everywhere. Since we don't have a father, I have to work hard. But you always say you enjoy your work. The greeting to my mom went smoothly. Kevin didn't seem to mind that I didn't have a father, as my parents had divorced when I was young. I planned to have him meet my grandparents eventually, but I wasn't worried about that either. My grandparents have lived in the countryside but are not narrow-minded. In fact, they are quite flexible, advising against calling customers Miss or Mr. due to gender concerns, and suggesting we create low-calorie or fiber-rich products for health. Therefore, unless I bring someone very strange, they would likely say that marriage is up to the individuals involved. Having finished greeting my mom, the next step was to greet Kevin's parents. Kevin did a good job greeting my mom, so I had to follow his example. About greeting my parents, just let everything they say go in one ear and out the other. Huh? What do you mean? As I was driving Kevin home after greeting my mom, he said something that I didn't quite understand. When I looked at him, he seemed to have a gloomy expression. I would understand the meaning of this expression a bit later. The next day, I had some errands to run and went to the city office with my mom. While talking to the female clerk at the counter, a man in his 60s suddenly interrupted us. Miss, get me that document. We will assist you in turn, so please wait a moment. Huh, are you putting me on hold? The man leaned on the counter with one elbow, glaring at the female clerk. Judging by his clothes, they seemed expensive. Looking at his attitude and attire, I couldn't help but think, is he some kind of gang member? The man's impact was that strong. We can wait. We're not in a hurry. Thank you. I'm sorry about this. My mom smiled and gave up our turn to the man. The clerk probably had to serve us first due to protocol. However, that might have caused trouble with the man. Therefore, my mom, who dislikes conflict, chose to give up our turn. If my mom gave up our turn, the clerk could change the order. The female clerk conveyed her gratitude to my mom with her expression. So, do you have the application form? I don't have such a thing. Just get it done. That would be difficult. It's a fixed procedure. Do you know who I am? I'll get you fired. I wanted to retort, who are you? But if I did, my mom's effort to keep the peace would be wasted, so I held back. Even without my saying anything, the man was being selfish, and my mom's effort was becoming futile. As I realized our procedure might take a while, the female clerk's supervisor appeared. Hello. Is there something I can help you with? This person never hands in the usual documents on time. She is useless. Fire her. She's still young, please forgive her. I'll get it ready right away. The female clerk's supervisor retreated with a light smile. It seems the supervisor is used to dealing with this man. I thought this would stop the man's outburst, but it didn't. Miss, can you at least bring me some water? I'm thirsty. The female clerk looked clearly troubled. My mother and I exchanged looks, signaling her to go ahead, and the female clerk reluctantly left her seat. This is my first time seeing a real gangster. Even without any proof, in my mind, this man had become a complete gangster. New experiences always spark curiosity. I found myself glancing at the man several times. Is there something on my face? No, I was just looking at the poster on the wall. The local festival poster? It's full of typical stalls and local food, nothing but rustic stuff. Yes, that's right. That festival is something the locals look forward to every year, and my shop is planning to set up a booth with cookies. I felt a bit irritated, as if he had insulted my hometown. Just then, the female clerk returned with the water. As she handed it over, the man leaned arrogantly on the counter, watching the interaction between the clerk and us. It didn't feel good at all. Sensing that I wanted to leave quickly, the female clerk hurried with the paperwork. Once the procedure was done, my mother and I quickly walked away from the scene. See you around. I hoped I would never see him again. I turned back to give a brief nod as we headed for the exit. From behind, we could hear the man's voice again. He seemed to be bothering the female clerk once more. I felt sorry for her, but there was nothing we could do except wait for her supervisor to return. He was quite something, wasn't he? We should avoid getting involved in unnecessary matters. But I feel like I've seen his face somewhere before. Do you know him? Not at all. As we left the office, my mother and I talked about the man, feeling the tension ease. It's rude to judge someone without knowing them well. However, if even my usually gentle mother had such a strong reaction, it's no wonder I felt the same. When someone leaves such a strong impression, you can't help but become curious about who they are and what they do. My curiosity was unexpectedly soon satisfied. Thank you very much. That last customer had a lot to say about how people with kids struggle to work in this town. Before that, they mentioned how young people in general find it hard to work here. She seems so dependable, even though she looks only a bit older than me. You should learn from her. Speaking of work and parenting, that man we saw the other day was something else. Changing the subject, huh? I remember who he is now. Really? Who is he? He's a town council member. Really? That man? His family has been in politics for generations in this town. Is it okay for someone with that attitude to be a council member? In small town councils, there's a serious lack of people. It's not unusual to have people like him. Since there's a shortage of candidates, most members are in their 60s and are mostly men. In this town, the average age is over 60, and 90% are men. Oh. That's why politics tends to be such a closed-off, old-fashioned industry. When new perspectives don't come in, you get that "I'm the best congressman" kind of attitude. You seem to know a lot about this. I heard it from Kevin. Wait, a political family. No way. When I heard the same words, political family, from both Kevin and my mother, I had a bad feeling. People say the world is small, but in reality, it's vast. I quickly dismissed the unpleasant thought, thinking such a coincidence couldn't possibly happen. However, while the world may be vast, small towns make coincidences more likely. So, you're Kevin's fiancé. You're beautiful. I'd marry you myself if I could. When I went to the family meeting at my in-laws' house, the man I hoped to never see again was sitting on the living room sofa. The man who had been so demanding at the town hall was Kevin's father, Nicholas. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, he didn't remember meeting me at the town hall. The moment I saw his face, I felt like collapsing to my knees inside. However, it's often said that first impressions can be deceiving and people can turn out to be good upon getting to know them. Therefore, I needed to learn more about Nicholas. So, your family runs a bakery? Must be tough making ends meet in a small town. If you ever need money, you can always be my mistress. I've got plenty. Nicholas spent at least 8 out of 10 minutes making crude remarks. Most of his crude comments revolved around money and sexual topics. It was especially infuriating when he mocked our bakery. With a forced smile, I nodded along to Nicholas's stories, understanding what Kevin meant by telling me to just let his words pass. I consider myself good at finding people's positive traits. But no matter how much I talked with him, I couldn't find any redeeming qualities. Finding something good about Nicholas seemed incredibly challenging. However, there isn't only one way to solve a problem. If Nicholas was difficult, I could focus on building a better relationship with my mother-in-law, Rachel, and have her address Nicholas's crude behavior. I decided to give up on understanding Nicholas and turn to talk to Rachel instead. "You're marrying Kevin? Kevin's going to be a politician. And you're from a small-town bakery? Our family is full of politicians, and you bring in your dirty, poor commoner blood? Once you get married, you must quit your job and support Kevin. Understand? Oh, this is bad." Both in-laws were incredibly difficult. I looked to Kevin for help. But he seemed just as stunned by their words, his face blank and unresponsive. He was likely so embarrassed that he mentally escaped to another dimension. That's my fiancé. He had properly taught me how to deal with his parents. I'll try escaping to another dimension too. Barely, but we managed to finish greeting his parents. When Kevin was taking me home, he apologized sheepishly. "Sorry. You were surprised, right? They think this town is their kingdom. Once we're married, I'll try to limit our contact with them as much as possible. Just endure the meetings and wedding for now, even if they say something." It just shows how proud they are of their work and roles, right? That's a good thing. Some of their words were a bit troublesome, but don't worry about it. Kevin seemed relieved and, for the first time today, showed a genuine smile instead of a forced one. When I got home, I immediately reported about Nicholas to my mother. "Small towns are really tight-knit, aren't they?" I thought so too. Kevin said that once he gets married, he'll try to minimize our interactions with Nicholas and his family. Even his own child is fed up with him. But since he raised Kevin, whom we respect, he must have some qualities we can't see. If we talk to him properly, we might be able to see that side of him. Well, I'm not sure about that. At first, I tried to find the good points of my future in-laws, but I couldn't find anything. However, my mother might be able to find something that I couldn't. If she could, it might help me improve my relationship with my in-laws. I feel bad relying on her, but I decided to place my hopes on my mother. After that, while preparing for the wedding, we also prepared for the meeting between our parents. As the day of the meeting approached, the thought of meeting my future in-laws again made me increasingly nervous. As for my mother, she seemed unfazed, humming while cleaning the showcase as usual. I felt she was a bit too relaxed, but my mother is a calm person, so even if my in-laws said something rude, she wouldn't get upset or disappointed like I would. I decided to stop worrying about others and focus on my own concerns. On the day of the meeting between our parents, my mother and I headed to the upscale restaurant Kevin had reserved. We were escorted by the staff to a room where Kevin and his parents were already seated. When they saw us enter, Nicholas stood up and walked towards us. "Nice to meet you. You're Ashley's mother, right?" "I'm Nicholas." Yes. Hey, you. Remember, she runs a bakery, not a politician." "Oh, right. Sorry, it's just a habit. Please, have a seat." "Thank you." I thought Nicholas would greet my mother politely, but he handed her his business card instead. It seemed he wanted to make sure she knew he was a politician. Rachel, on the other hand, seemed to look down on us for running a bakery, but since we hadn't even sat down yet, I decided to ignore it. After sitting down, my mother placed the business card he had given her on the table. Even in such situations, my mother follows proper etiquette by not putting away the card immediately. The card featured a cheerful photo of Nicholas. It looked like a miracle shot, almost like a different person from the him in front of us. "Oh, I brought some pound cake from our store. Please enjoy it." My mother offered the pound cake with a smile. Despite my in-laws' apparent disdain for our bakery, I hoped that tasting the cake would change their minds. But my in-laws were a step or two ahead of my expectations. Nicholas took the box of pound cake and handed it to Rachel without a word. Rachel then began unwrapping it under the table to check the contents. After inspecting it, she whispered something to Nicholas. "Thank you for the thoughtful gift. We often forget what common folks eat, so this is helpful. It's important for us as politicians to know what you usually have. But next time, a bit more consideration would be appreciated. Nicholas, you shouldn't talk like that to common folks." "Really? But they need to understand proper manners." "Well, I see." My mother seems unusually irritated by the unpleasant money-related conversation. Sitting next to me, my mother is restlessly clenching and unclenching her hands under the table. I've never seen her like this. It's common for usually mild-mannered people to be unstoppable when they finally explode. Could my mother be that type? The in-laws, oblivious to my growing anxiety, continue their tirade. "How much do you sell this pound cake for?" $13 for 6. It used to be more affordable, but with the recent rise in costs, I've had to increase the price. Did you hear that? Ordinary people think $13 is too much. Hey, that's rude. Stella makes a living with just a small profit from each pound cake she sells. Is that what a bakery business is like? How do you manage? Everyone says they enjoy it and buys it, so we manage to get by. Isn't that just a polite lie? Pretending to like it out of courtesy? That's what I would do if I received this. My mother starts stretching her fingers under the table, pulling and bending them. Being mocked for her beloved pound cake has increased her anger. I signal Kevin with my eyes to stop his parents, but since he's sitting across from me, he can't see my mother's hands. Kevin, unaware of the situation, doesn't catch my signal. I realized I'd have to intervene, but it seems I was too late. "We'll tolerate your lowly bloodline, but in return, Ashley will quit her job after marriage and fully support Kevin in his political career." From a small-town bakery to a politician's wife. Lucky you. Is being a politician such an esteemed position that you can look down on others? Of course. Politicians are highly respected. What's the matter? As they mocked me, my mother's restless hands suddenly stopped. She moved Nicholas's business card from the edge to the center of the table. Everyone's eyes focused on the card, wondering what was happening. My mother then grabbed a glass of water. I thought she was going to drink it before speaking, but she poured it over the card instead. "What are you doing?" She slammed the glass back on the table. Nicholas's face on the card was drenched. My mother glared at Nicholas, clearly indicating that this was the equivalent of throwing water in his face. I'm shocked to see my usually gentle mother do something like this. However, she didn't seem to have lost her composure entirely. She probably wanted to splash Nicholas and Rachel directly. But that would have been assault. So, she poured water on the card instead. Even just folding the card would be quite disrespectful. But pouring water on it was practically inviting a fight. Naturally, the in-laws were furious. "Do you realize we've been politicians here for generations? Your shop provides goods for events, right? I'll make sure everything is pulled from the registry. Go out of business and regret it." Generations of politicians? So what? You don't seem to know anything about our ancestors? My mother remained calm but was clearly very angry. The fact that she brought up our ancestors, something she rarely talked about, was proof of that. What? Why would I know about the ancestors of a small bakery? Unless it's over 100 years old, a small shop shouldn't be so arrogant. I've never been treated this rudely before. I swear I'll shut your shop down. Don't think you can do business around here anymore. Is that so? Then I'll make sure you and your associates are removed from office. You intend to run for office? That's futile. Don't bother. Elections cost money. Besides, how do you plan to take votes from someone who's been a politician for years? Ashley, we're leaving. My mother walked out of the room, and I followed her. As I left the room, the staff brought in lavish dishes, almost as if to replace us. It felt a bit wasteful, but it couldn't be helped. As we exited the restaurant, Kevin ran after us. I'm really sorry for today. I'll cut ties with my parents, so could you please allow me to marry Ashley? Kevin apologized to my mother and expressed his desire to marry me, pleading earnestly. How could such a decent child come from those two? Is it the opposite role model effect? Honestly, I think that's part of it. I've seen so much of what I don't want to be in my parents. With my mother's approval of our marriage, the tense atmosphere eased a bit. Do you mind if I give your parents a little lesson? I've been curious about that. If you can really unseat my father, I'd ask you to do it. He gave his blessing for us to take action against his parents. This would mark the end of his parents' future. About 6 months had passed since the confrontation between our parents. The wedding was approaching, but before that, it was time for the city council elections. Usually, familiar faces would fill the seats unopposed. However, this time, there seemed to be a bit more commotion than usual. Still, elections happen everywhere and end before you realize it. My mother and I were at our shop as usual when Nicholas and Rachel stormed in, yelling, "What did you do?" Please don't raise your voice in the shop. It's fine since there are no customers now. That's not the point. What happened? Why did I have to lose? And I was the only one who lost. That's ridiculous. And to lose to that young woman is unacceptable. My mother and I exchanged glances and couldn't help but laugh. It seemed Nicholas and Rachel genuinely didn't understand why Nicholas lost. We'd need to explain it step by step. The young woman you're talking about? She ran for the first time at 36. My mother supported her. She's a regular at our shop and always believed this town could be better. She was interested in politics but didn't know how to get involved, so she turned to my mother for help. What? Just because a bakery supported her, she won the election? What dirty tricks did you use? Please don't be rude. I volunteered to help. I didn't get paid, and we didn't break any election laws. Before election laws, it didn't even look like she was campaigning. Where did she get her votes from? And the money? Campaigning costs a fortune. If you fronted it, that's a problem. I told you, we didn't break any laws. It looked like she wasn't campaigning because she was using social media to share her policies. She used direct messages, videos, a website, and other internet-based methods, with no street speeches. The total spent was under $2,000. Campaigning online? It should cost tens of thousands, and she spent $2,000? I lost to that method. Nicholas and Rachel were quite shocked, unable to adapt to new perspectives and clinging to old beliefs. However, there are instances where younger generations in their 30s have won elections by effectively using social media. My grandparents, who are 80 years old, are very flexible and embrace new values to the point of being mindful of gender issues and the language they use when interacting with others. My mother, who is still young at 54, has inherited this adaptability and is even more flexible. She advised that this method would be suitable for electing young people. No way, there are other candidates too. How can they just snatch my votes like that? It doesn't make any sense. It seems you forget, but we've seen you acting arrogantly at the city office. And outside, you were doing whatever you pleased, leaving a terrible impression on the townspeople. So, that person posted on social media about reforming the old ways of the council. While it wasn't said directly, anyone could see it meant stopping council members from being overbearing. That created an atmosphere where people wanted you out. And if a young woman is doing it, it makes people want to support her even more, right? The internet can be scary like that. My mother was explaining this to my in-laws with a pleased and satisfied expression, happy with the outcome she had aimed for. However, the most important point hadn't been mentioned yet. It wasn't just the power of social media that led to this result. I believe my mother's presence was a significant factor. Since my mother doesn't like to talk about this, I decided to explain it for her. My mother's knowledge about elections and her ability to gather votes have another important reason. You don't have to say that. No, it's important to explain. Our ancestors were landlords in this area. During land reforms, we had to give up most of our land. This bakery was built around that time. So, it doesn't have a long history. It doesn't have a long history. But being former landlords, we have valuable historical documents about this area. We've lent these documents to the city office, which is a gesture of goodwill from my mother. The remaining land we have is now lent for free as parkland for local children. This, too, is thanks to my mother's generosity. So, you're saying you're connected with the city office? Exactly. You were just arrogantly flaunting your power without achieving much, so you didn't get this kind of information. Unlike you, my mother has built trustful relationships instead of just commanding people. So, it was easy to gather information about your bad reputation and take countermeasures. And when someone supported by my mother comes forward as a candidate, it's easier for them to gain trust. Our regular customers from the bakery also supported her a lot. It created an atmosphere where people naturally wanted to oust you, so eventually, we didn't have to do much. While I was talking, my mother looked a bit embarrassed. Nicholas loves to flaunt his power as a politician, but my mother is not like that. She doesn't like to talk about being former landlords or lending documents and land. It's this modesty that has earned her the trust of those around her. This trust from the townspeople leads to many requests for help. Among these were election-related tasks, leveraging her local knowledge and advertising strategies honed at the bakery, which proved useful this time. Too bad. Better luck next time. I'm not really sure, but isn't the next election in 4 years? Fight young with young. Next, we'll put Kevin up. Your marriage is off. Why does you get to decide both my political career and my marriage, Dad? Kevin, you're here? Kevin emerged from the back of the shop, surprising his parents. We were about to become a married couple, so it shouldn't be so shocking for him to be around his in-laws-to-be. It was the weekend, and he had the day off, so he was at the shop. Earlier, he had been observing the craftsmen making sweets in the back, not hiding. I said I was cutting ties after our parents met. Since I did, stop trying to force me into politics. And you have no right to cancel our marriage. You can't be serious about cutting ties. You just said that in the heat of the moment, didn't you? Don't marry that guy. We are a family of politicians. So you must become a politician too. I believe being a politician is a respectable job. But it's not just being a politician that makes someone admirable, right? It's being a politician who actually does good work that people respect. I don't think you're admirable at all, just throwing your weight around and lording your power over others. Do whatever you want. I'll definitely ruin this shop. His parents stormed out, shouting. They still seemed to believe this town was their personal kingdom or something. Having already talked to the town hall, I had an idea of what would happen next. Even without doing anything, they would soon realize their mistake. Nicholas was dragged from his seat as a councilman, and complaints of harassment and misconduct poured in from all sides. There was even information from another council member about embezzlement. It seemed some council members were troubled by his tyranny. But with his family's long history in politics, he wielded undue power, making it difficult for anyone to fight back. Now, seeing a chance, some with a sense of justice took action, while others, still stuck in old ways, worried me that they might defend him. However, they too had engaged in harassment, so they stayed silent to avoid getting involved. Nicholas, abandoned and without support, could not return to his position. He was left alone, abandoned by everyone. In this situation, he could never return to being a senator. However, Nicholas had been a politician for many years, so he must have accumulated a significant amount of money. Yet, it won't be possible for him to live comfortably off that money from now on. With the continuous stream of accusations, the amount of compensation he might have to pay is staggering. How much money will he be left with in the end? Additionally, he could face criminal charges. If that happens, finding another job would be very difficult. Most importantly, his in-laws, who had once thought of him as the most powerful politician, lost that prestigious title. This was the biggest shock to them. Kevin has also made it clear that he does not want to become a politician, so the legacy of the political family ends with him. In this situation, his in-laws have lost all motivation, and they stay indoors as they are looked at with cold eyes when they go out. Amidst all this, Kevin and I had our wedding. Of course, his in-laws were not present. After the wedding, we headed to the county office. The clerk greeted us with a warm smile. This alone showed how much easier it has become to work. With Nicholas gone, the woman my mother supported is thriving. Kevin and I got our marriage certificate issued. We are now officially married. I'll never forget the shock of running into my husband Kent at our best friend Sarah's baby shower. It seemed Sarah didn't know that Kent and I were married. Anyway, the idea the two of them had a child together. That was beyond belief. You two look so happy together, I'm almost jealous. Oh dear, to be the odd one out in our trio of friends. Sarah, Kent, I hope you guys find happiness, no matter what. Sarah nodded with a full-faced smile, while Kent did awkwardly in return. I knew the truth. I knew Kent was the kind of man who'd say, pregnancy is not an illness, so don't be lazy. He wouldn't lift a finger to help a pregnant woman. To think he'd cheat on his wife, with our close friend no less, was beyond comprehension. Asking for forgiveness? That was out of the question. I decided it was time for him to lose everything. My name is Lucy. I'm a hairdresser in a small town. This is where I was born and raised. It's not as flashy as the city, but it's a comfortable place to live. The sense of community here is just right, making it a great place to call home. Kent and I were high school classmates. Back then, our friends Sarah and us were known as the inseparable trio, always together. Especially Kent and I were the class's official couple. Whenever someone asked, "Where's Kent right now?" I could answer precisely, often teased, "You're going to make a great wife someday." The third member of our trio, Sarah, was always plugged into her earphones, listening to British music or the radio, dreaming of England. She was one of the top students in our class. Sarah achieved her dream, attending university in England, and after graduating, we only exchanged messages a few times a year. After graduation, I went to vocational school and became a hairdresser. Since my family owned a beauty salon, I started working there. As for Kent, he joined his family's business after attending a local university. That company sold beauty products like shampoo. Interestingly, the company was a business partner of my family's salon. The connection was another reason our relationship was often the subject of playful comments. Kent was reserved, not much of a talker, the opposite of talkative me. Yet strangely, we got along well, and our relationship from high school led to a marriage without a formal proposal. We bought a house in the city, started a new life in a spacious home. Sometime after our marriage, I became pregnant. Overjoyed to be carrying Kent's child, I happily shared the news that night. "Kent, guess what? I'm pregnant." I was eagerly waiting for his joyous reaction, but what I got was anything but enthusiastic. "Oh, is that so? Aren't you happy?" Silently, he started fiddling with his mobile phone, searching for due dates and birth stories. "The baby will be here next year. Make sure you wrap up your work by then." "Is that all you have to say?" "What else is there to say?" "I guess nothing." I was honestly disappointed with his attitude, but soon, I found myself in a situation that left no room for such concerns. My first pregnancy was tougher than I had imagined. I used to work full-time, but sudden bouts of illness and doctor's appointments often made it difficult. Reluctantly, I decided to take maternity leave earlier than usual and focus on my health. However, Kent was unsympathetic to my condition. He searched the standard duration of maternity leave on his mobile phone and confronted me with it. "Aren't you taking off too early? Our income will soon decrease." "My job is physically demanding, and everyone's health conditions are different. Besides, my mom said she'd handle the salon while I'm away." "Pregnancy isn't an illness, so don't be coddled. If you're like this, our child won't amount to much." He would even say such things, even though it's his child too. "If it's my child, it has to be excellent. You need to make an effort too. If you become a lazy housewife, I'll divorce you right away. You've been slacking off with the housework, haven't you? The meals are sloppy, and the house is a mess. I just can't manage it all right now. I have a limited diet. Can't you at least prepare your own meals?" In fact, he was completely reliant on me for household chores. Growing up in a family business, I was accustomed to housework from a young age. Whereas, it seemed he never had to lift a finger at home, thanks to his mother being so diligent. "Men in our family don't do housework." It was his mother Catherine's mantra, suggesting a belief that it was a woman's role. While I admired her dedication to household chores, it resulted in Kent being clueless about even basic tasks like laundry. That was a source of quiet frustration for me. As I was pondering how to discuss this with Kent, I suddenly needed to use the restroom. Those who've been pregnant might understand, but at that time, I needed to go quite often. "Sorry, I need to use the restroom." "Again? Aren't you getting a bit old for this?" "When the belly grows, bathroom breaks become more frequent." "How disgraceful. You're always complaining about your health lately. It's like living with an old woman." He then started a long rant about his grievances. But I was desperate to use the restroom, and frankly, I was uncomfortable with his incessant complaints and old woman comparisons, and just wanted to leave. When he finally took a breath, "I need to use the restroom," I managed to say. But he snapped, "I'm not done talking yet." Somehow, I endured his lengthy tirade and rushed to the restroom at the last possible moment. How uncool. Behind me, his voice could be heard muttering. Initially, his calm and unflappable demeanor was what attracted me to him. However, since finding out about the pregnancy, it feels like everything is backfiring. Moreover, he compares me to various people he reads about online. "That celebrity was back to work right after giving birth, and her figure was perfect too. You'll be the same, right?" "I don't know. Don't compare me to such incredible people so casually. You're both human, just give it a try. Don't disappoint me too much." Apparently, his expectations were ridiculously high. Besides, his information came from the internet, but he naively believed dubious facts. Every time we met, it led to such conversations, creating a tense atmosphere between us. Around the same time our baby was conceived, he started spending less time at home. Our arguments, like the ones I just mentioned, were one reason, but he also began going out at night or on weekends, claiming it was for work. That was not something we had seen in our life together before. He was the exact opposite of the increasingly popular image of a cooperative, involved father. One night, when he came home late, I decided to confront him. "You've been busy with work lately, haven't you?" "I'm cultivating new clients. It's none of your business." "But Kent, have you been drinking?" "This is my refreshment. Stop nagging." His voice was so loud it could be heard outside. Sure enough, I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "You never had to drink after work before." "What's going on?" "You wouldn't understand. Besides." Thus, his sneering began anew. "You're just lazing around at home while I work every day. This isn't fair." "I'm not lazing around. I'm quite busy preparing for the birth." "That's no excuse to neglect the household chores. You don't even put on makeup anymore. It's like you're using pregnancy as an excuse to abandon your femininity." "That's terrible." Holding back tears, I went to put his bag on the shelf, when something small fell to the floor with a clatter. "What are they? Wireless earbuds?" I picked them up casually and studied them closely. They were small, shaped like earrings, and in a cute pink color that many women would like. "Don't touch my bag without permission. That's an invasion of privacy." "I always do this." "But Kent, you don't usually use earbuds, right? If they're lost, we should return them." "That's for me to worry about. Just focus on your chores. Why can't you even manage that properly?" His reaction was far too intense for just pointing out a lost item. As I was about to respond, I felt a dull impact in my abdomen. He had kicked me. "Don't forget you're being provided for. Keep your unnecessary comments to yourself, or I'll have to rethink things." I couldn't grasp what had just happened to me. After he stormed off to his room, I sat on the floor in a daze, replaying the recent events. I couldn't see how I had done anything to deserve being kicked. I couldn't comprehend his reaction. The next day, just to be safe, I went to the hospital to check on my baby. I couldn't dare say my husband had kicked me, so I lied that I had fallen at home. Fortunately, there were no abnormalities with the baby, but the area where I was kicked was bruised and discolored. Amidst that, some good news arrived. My best friend Sarah had given birth. She had gone to university in England and I heard she settled there for work, but apparently, she had returned to the US. Ideally, I would have brought Kent along, reuniting the trio of friends after such a long time, but unfortunately, he was away on a business trip. Reluctantly, I went to congratulate her by myself. In the bright, sunlit hospital room, Sarah lay in bed, looking relieved. As I entered the room, she struggled to sit up. "It's been a while. Congratulations on your baby." "Thank you. I actually came back to the US about a year ago but couldn't get in touch, sorry. I'm just glad the baby is safely here." She looked more refined than when she was a student, more grown up. By her pillow, I noticed earbuds identical to the ones I found in Kent's bag. She seemed to notice my gaze. "Oh, these? They're my favorite. I lost one recently, but my honey found it for me." "Really? What's your husband like?" "Actually, we're not married yet." "You know what? The guy is." Her words were interrupted by a knock on the door. Entering the room was none other than Kent. I was so shocked, I couldn't speak. "You must be surprised." "Actually, I'm dating Kent now." She seemed unaware that we were married. She smiled innocently before my eyes. "Hey, long time no see. How's it going?" Kent's shameless demeanor pushed my confusion to the max. It's a reunion of the trio. I started seeing Kent again after returning from England. But with all the paperwork, we haven't married yet. "I see. As you can tell, I'm also expecting a baby." I felt an overwhelming urge to reveal everything. But I paused, regaining a bit of calm. I had a baby in my womb. I had to protect my child and myself, I pondered the most effective way to handle this predicament. In the end, I decided to keep things peaceful for now. My husband is on a business trip right now. I really wanted to bring him along today. That's a shame. I wanted to meet your husband. It's really unfortunate. But having a husband like yours who accompanies her must be infinitely better. My husband doesn't help out at all. I secretly glared at Kent. He deliberately looked away. You two look so happy together, I'm almost jealous. Oh dear, to be the odd one out in our trio of friends. Sarah, Kent, I hope you find happiness, no matter what. Sarah nodded with a full-faced smile, while Kent did awkwardly in return. By the way, this is a gift for the baby. I heard you can never have too many bibs, so I got these. I even got matching ones for my baby. That's adorable, thank you. You must be excited about your baby too, Lucy. After a healthy delivery, we should all go out together. At the mention of all of us, Kent's shoulders twitched slightly. I pretended not to notice and continued smiling cheerfully. Hey, let's take a photo while we're here. Sarah, hold the baby. And Kent, get in close. I captured the moment of Sarah holding the baby with Kent beside her in a photo. With a forced smile plastered on my face, I left the hospital room. Before I realized it, I was breathing heavily, my shoulders heaving. From beyond the door, I could hear Sarah's excited voice and Kent's low murmurs. Upon leaving the hospital, I hurried home. I opened my mobile phone and immediately contacted a real estate agent. Yes, I know it's sudden, but I want to sell my house. Yes, right away is fine. I want to complete the process quickly. Could you also refer me to a moving company? I made arrangements to sell the house and contracted a moving company that the real estate agent recommended. Next, I called my in-laws. Catherine? Due to some urgent matters with Kent, I'll be sending over some belongings. Don't be alarmed by the amount. Right, I had decided to erase the house I lived in, as if it never existed. Kent said he would be away on a business trip until the next day. He's probably planning to stay somewhere tonight. While part of me wanted to send the belongings directly to Catherine's house without warning, she wasn't to blame. At least I informed her. After finishing these tasks, I noticed incoming calls from Kent. In fact, since leaving the hospital, he had been calling incessantly. I ignored them and read a book. Then, a message came in. Let's talk, just the two of us. What was there to talk about in that situation? Moreover, since the incident where he kicked my abdomen, a sense of caution towards him had sprouted in my mind. At that time, the caution had turned into suspicion, and I didn't even want to hear his voice. Once home, I immediately started packing. I entered his room and without hesitation began boxing up his belongings. Fortunately, it was the off-season for moving. I was able to sign up for a plan where the movers would help pack, making the shipping process smoother than expected. All that was left was to send my own belongings. After contacting my parents, they rushed over and the move was completed promptly. There was something I found in Kent's room. It was a partially completed divorce application. He was planning to leave me for Sarah and marry her. It seemed convenient, so I filled in the rest of the divorce application and decided to keep it safe. Just then, I received a call from Catherine. Lucy, I knew you were sending some things over, but I had no idea it would be this much. What on earth happened? The truth is, Kent has been having an affair. Do you remember Sarah from high school? It seems he has a child with her. I could sense her shock over the phone. Despite feeling sorry for her, I continued. I'm sorry, but I have proof. I'll send you a photo. I sent her the photo I took in the hospital room of Sarah, the baby, and Kent together. I don't want to believe it, but it's true, isn't it? I wish it wasn't. But it is. I'll be staying at my parents' house from tonight. She apparently tried to contact Kent after that but couldn't reach him. When she asked if I knew where he might be, I unexpectedly replied that he was no longer family to me. She understood my determination from my response. That evening, I took my essentials and returned to my parents' house, sleeping peacefully in my old room. The next morning, Kent contacted me. Hey! Our house is empty and there's a for sale sign up. What's going on? Don't you understand? Your home isn't there anymore. For now, your belongings are at your parents' house. I'm changing the locks tomorrow, so coming back would be pointless. What have you done? Let's talk, at least. Fine. How about this afternoon at your parents' house? I'll contact your mother. I ended the call quickly and started preparing to go out. That afternoon, the involved parties gathered at my in-laws' house. Kent's parents, my parents, Kent, and me. Catherine's face was noticeably pale. Surprisingly, she was the first to speak. Kent, is it true that you've been having an affair with your friend Sarah? Affair? No, we just started dating later, that's all. I don't want to hear excuses. And now there's a child involved. Looks like we were just really compatible. The next moment, Catherine punched Kent. What have you done? Lucy is carrying your child. How could you face her? I had never seen the usually calm and elegant her like that. A trickle of blood ran from Kent's nose, but he seemed unaware. Ouch. What are you doing? It's natural for a child to come from a loving relationship. How can you even say that? I interrupted the parent-child argument. First of all, how did you end up dating Sarah? I ran into her at the bus terminal while I was out on business. She had just returned to the US and was busy with a new job. She had a charm you didn't, Lucy. That's not a reason to start a relationship, is it? Ever since high school, I actually liked Sarah. But she was out of reach, so I settled for you. I was speechless at his brazen words. Meeting Sarah again and reminiscing made me realize she didn't have bad feelings for me. There's no reason to stop us now. He had kept his marriage a secret from Sarah. When Sarah became pregnant soon after they started dating, he considered divorcing me. Around the same time, I became pregnant too. He reached that point without the courage to divorce or the determination to remarry. How can you justify such selfishness? Aren't you ashamed of two-timing? Sarah and Lucy are completely different. Reuniting with Sarah made me realize how unsatisfied I was with Lucy. I plan to remarry Sarah and step up as a man. Don't be absurd. To think my son could do something like this, I'm so disappointed. Catherine's anger knew no bounds. If that's how you feel, our parent-child bond is over. You're also fired from the company. You're on your own from now on. That's fine by me. Honestly, I was skeptical. Could Kent, who had only worked in a small family business, really handle another job? You have no idea. The reason you could work till now is thanks to Lucy's salon. What? Lucy's salon? That small-town shop doesn't significantly impact my performance. The only reason you had any success was because her shop promoted our products. Ungrateful. Listening silently, my parents announced they would cease business with Kent's company. It can't be helped. I'll start my own business. I'm still young, I can learn. With Sarah returning to work soon after giving birth, our new life is secure. I muttered into my mobile phone, so he says. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed, "Are you stupid?" From the beginning of the discussion, I had been on a video call with Sarah. If I knew you were married to Lucy, I wouldn't have been involved. It's like I'm betraying her too. I'm speechless at your naivety. Frankly, you lack talent as a business person. Why are you there? I got in touch with Lucy and decided to join this discussion. I'm glad I heard everything. I never want to see you again. Wait, don't leave me. Why should I be with someone as awful as you? I'll raise the baby alone, just don't show your face. Of course, I will expect child support. Realizing remarriage was off the table, Kent suddenly turned to me, almost pleading. Lucy, I was wrong. Let's forget everything and raise our child together. Continue this marriage with such a despicable man? No way. I can't forget the terrible things you've done. The shock of seeing he appear in Sarah's hospital room was fresh in my mind. Don't spoil the mood. Isn't your kindness your best quality? Unable to give up, he was staring intently at me. His mouth agape, his nose bloodied and clotted, he was a picture of disgrace. I shook my head slowly. Just because things didn't work out with Sarah, you think you can come back to me? That's too convenient. But what about you?
You'll struggle too, won't you? How do you plan to raise the child?
I have skills, and I'm much better off without a husband like you. I'm not foolish enough to cling to a foolish man. My parents had discussed it with me on the previous day, and they assured me of their full support. Being in customer service, they have good contacts with reputable law firms. I presented the divorce application I had found in his drawer. As you can see, the divorce application is all set. All that's left is to file it. Let's quickly settle the compensation and child support.
Wait, I have to pay both Sarah and you.
Of course. I am your wife, after all. But don't think I'll overlook any negligence towards Sarah's situation either. I have a lawyer ready. He was at his wit's end. At that moment, I felt an unprecedented pain in my abdomen. Oh my, it hurts. My labor had started right at that moment. The discussion was obviously adjourned, and I was rushed to the local hospital by my parents. From there, everything happened so quickly. Exhausted from the stress of the discussion and the labor, I fell into a deep sleep in the hospital bed. Even when the nurses woke me up occasionally, I barely opened my eyes. After being discharged and returning home with my baby, I asked my parents about the current situation. My mother, as a hairdresser, had subtly spread rumors about Kent among her clients. Our customers are mostly housewives. A word or two from her was exaggerated and spread quickly throughout the town. On the other hand, Kent tried to start an internet sales company, something he was always interested in. He seemed to have underestimated personal connections, seeking solace in the internet. However, his capabilities did not match the power of word of mouth. The rumors prevented him from finding a bank to finance his business, and it failed to take off. He tasted the bitter consequences of underestimating the local community network he had belittled. There was another thing that damaged him. The video call with Sarah. She had used another camera to record the entire discussion. She edited Kent's selfish behavior into a short video and spread it among our high school classmates. As a result, he lost all his friends, and those who might have helped him also turned away. He was left to solve everything on his own. He was immediately kicked out of his family home and spent his days in a motel, depleting his savings while searching for a new home and job. Being unemployed and without a stable address, it was hard for him to settle down. Eventually, he moved to a distant land as it became uncomfortable for him to stay in the city. He finally found a part-time day job, struggling with the unfamiliar physical labor. Sure, there was no mercy. I warned him that if he ever missed a child support payment, I would sue him for assault for kicking me in the stomach. The photos I took of my injuries in case something happened to the baby proved to be useful. The medical records from when I was treated at the hospital for the injuries would also serve as significant evidence. I filed the divorce papers, and almost concurrently with giving birth, I became a single mother. I was not living alone though. I rent a house and decided to live with Sarah. It was the four of us, Sarah, our babies, and me. The children got along as if they were siblings. Sarah and I were best friends to begin with. With Kent out of the picture, our friendship as women only grew stronger. When one of us needed to step out, the other would take care of both babies, allowing us to manage work and have some time to refresh. We're already talking about taking our kids to the park together for the first time once they're a bit older. For now, I'm looking forward to enjoying this comfortable life. Children are a nuisance, so go to a facility. Who said I have a mom? My name is Madison. I'm in the 5th grade, living with my dad and mom. Dad is really kind, and he takes me out on his days off. Mom acts normal when Dad is around, but when he's not, she seems cold and distant, making it a bit hard to talk to her. See you. Dad, as usual, leaves for work early in the morning. As I eat breakfast. I'll see you later, I said. Checking the clock, it's almost time for me to go to school. I need to hurry up and get dressed after eating quickly. Thanks for the meal. After finishing, I place my dishes in the sink and head to my room to change. Wait. Mom stops me, pointing to the sink. Who's going to wash these? Her eyes are cold, almost angry. Normally, I'd just change and go to school, but it felt like I'd be scolded if I did. I'll wash them. I murmured.
What?
I can't hear you, you're too quiet. Mom suddenly yells. My body trembles. But feeling guilty, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'll wash them. Of course. From now on, take care of your own things. Mom angrily tosses her apron on the sofa and goes to her room. Reflecting on her words, I wash the breakfast dishes and leave for school. At school, while talking with friends, the conversation turns to parents. Hearing their stories, everyone else's moms seem kind, and though they get scolded, they seem close. What's your mom like? Suddenly asked by a friend, I'm at a loss for words. But I think maybe it's my misunderstanding that mom is cold, and her bad mood is because I haven't been doing things for myself. She's very kind. I respond. Hearing this, my friend says, That's nice. But I feel conflicted inside. I'm home. When I return home, mom isn't there. Maybe she went shopping, I think, and start my homework in my room. Before I know it, it's dark outside, and it's dinner time, but she hasn't come back yet. Then, I hear noises from the entrance and the fridge opening. Stepping out of my room, I see her in the kitchen. I am so hungry, so I go to the kitchen. Welcome back, I said to her, and she responds, I'm back. Her brief reply without looking back indicates she's still in a bad mood. What's for dinner tonight? I ask cheerfully. But maybe that was a mistake. When mom turns around, her face looks scary. Huh? I told you to do things for yourself, didn't I? Dad will be back soon, and I'm busy cooking. Unable to say anything more to her, I start to make instant noodles when Dad comes home. Hello. Hearing Dad's voice, Mom quickly takes the instant noodles from my hands. Confused about what to do, Dad enters the kitchen. Oh. Are we starting dinner now? Seeing Dad's kind face, I almost cry. Welcome back. Just got back from shopping. Dinner will be ready soon. Just wait a bit more. Mom's face softens. I can't tell if she's still angry, but the thought of eating Mom's cooking makes me happy. Later, we have dinner as a family, and I have a fun time playing games with Dad. Maybe Mom was just in a slightly bad mood. Thinking that there won't be any more scolding if I take care of myself properly, I fall asleep. From the next day, I try my best to do things by myself. I wash the breakfast dishes, fold the laundry, put it away, vacuum my room. And when Mom comes home late, I make instant noodles for myself. Thinking that this will surely make her happy, my face breaks into a smile. Mom hasn't praised me yet, but she's getting less angry. When Dad is around, the three of us have a good time together. I was happy about that. One time, I heard a groaning noise and woke up in the middle of the night. Thinking it might be a ghost, I dove under the covers. The groaning continued for a while, and as I trembled with fear, suddenly I heard an ambulance. It stopped nearby, and I realized it was right outside our house. Wondering who it was, I got out of bed and saw Dad being carried out. Dad! I shouted, rushing over. Dad looked pale and was sweating, obviously in a lot of pain. Tears came to my eyes, and clinging to the paramedic. Please save Dad! I begged. The paramedic put a hand on my head. We're taking him to the hospital now, he said. Then Mom and I followed the ambulance to the hospital, where Dad was taken away. We could only wait in the designated area. I was filled with anxiety, wondering what would happen if we lost Dad. But Mom, next to me, was handling her phone, not seeming worried at all. I cried alone, waiting for someone to tell me it was going to be okay. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor came over to us. Mom and the doctor spoke about something complicated, and all I understood was that Dad was ill and needed to be hospitalized. I was shocked that Dad had to fight a disease, and he couldn't come home for a while. Mom and I went home for now. After preparing for Dad's hospital stay, Mom left for the hospital again. Left alone at home, I lay in bed unable to sleep, and soon it was bright outside since it was early morning.
School.
I had to go to school. But I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like eating and just stayed under the covers.
Aren't you going to school?
Mom noticed me at noon. She didn't scold me for missing school but seemed busy and left for the hospital right away. Having eaten nothing since morning, I went to the kitchen. I ate the leftovers from last night's dinner as my meal. In the evening, Mom came back. She brought sandwiches. Eat this today.
I also bought some instant noodles for you to eat from tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. I decided to follow her instructions, not wanting to bother her as she was busy with Dad. The next day, after having instant noodles for breakfast, I went to school. My friends asked why I was absent yesterday, and I lied, saying I felt sick. The teacher, seeming to know the situation, spoke kindly to me. When I got home, Mom wasn't there, probably at the hospital with Dad. I wanted to see Dad too. I thought I'd ask Mom to take me on the next day off. While doing my homework, the phone rang. I was the only one home, so I answered. Hello? Oh, Madison? What are you doing? It was Dad on the phone, and hearing his voice made me cry.
Dad! Are you okay now? I want to see you.
Hearing me cry, he spoke gently.
Sorry to worry you. I'm okay now. I want to see you too. I'd be happy if you could come with Mom. Yeah. I'll ask her.
Okay.
Oh, is she there?
I wondered where she was. She wasn't at home. I thought she was at Dad's hospital.
Mom isn't here. Isn't she at the hospital?
Hearing this, Dad seemed to realize something and spoke evasively.
Right. She just left a while ago. She'll be back soon. Madison, have you had something to eat?
Yeah. Mom bought some instant noodles and stuff. After I said that, he was silent for a moment, then.
Is that so?
He said, before changing the subject. After talking with him for a while, I heard the front door open, so I told him she was back. Dad asked me to hand the phone to her. And when she, who had just returned, took over the phone, she looked a bit shaken as she talked to Dad. I went back to my room, noticing the smell of cigarettes on her and wondering where she had been. The next day, Mom asked if I wanted to go to the hospital with her. I said yes, even though she seemed a bit reluctant, but she took me. Seeing Dad after a long time. He was connected to Infor but smiled when he saw me.
Madison! You came!
I hugged him. Seeing him looking well made me want to cry again, but I was so happy to see him. After talking with him for a while, Mom said it was time to go, and we left the room reluctantly. As I looked back, he was waving at me with a smile.
Come visit again,
he said. But I never thought that would be our last conversation. His condition suddenly worsened, and he passed away in no time. I couldn't believe he was gone, as Mom instructed me to wear mourning attire and took me to the funeral home. Many people came to say goodbye to him. Seeing Mom's detached demeanor made me wonder if Dad was really gone. Standing at the edge of the room, someone approached me. Hey, aren't you Madison? I turned around to see a woman standing behind me. I was confused, not recognizing her, and she sat down next to me. It's been so long. I'm your aunt, Madison, your dad's sister. Looking at her, I saw she resembled Dad. I had no memory of an aunt, but I remembered Dad talking about his sister. Aunt. Yes, your aunt. Don't I look like your dad? She laughed, looking just like Dad. Then she suddenly hugged me.
It's okay to cry. You've been strong, Madison.
I must have been crying already because her words made me cry even more. It felt like the moment I realized I would never see Dad again. After a while, as my aunt soothed me, I thanked her and went to get a drink. When I entered the room, Mom was there. Seeing my tear-streaked face, she said coldly, "What? You cried? What an embarrassing face." Her words hurt. "Mom, aren't you sad?" I couldn't help asking her, seeing she wasn't grieving. There's no point in being sad. He's gone. I trembled at Mom's cold words. I wondered if she hated Dad, despite all the happy times we had as a family. As I stood frozen, my aunt came over. "Oh, long time no see," she said with a smile, and Mom's expression changed. "Oh, it's been a while. Anything I can help with?" "No. There's nothing." "Then, Madison, let's go over there." My aunt took my hand and led me out of the room. It was clear that Mom was uncomfortable around her. Afterward, I stayed with my aunt until Dad's funeral ended. "Madison, it's time to go." A while after the funeral, Mom came to pick me up. My aunt had been holding my hand the whole time, but she let go to say goodbye. Her face looked a bit sad. "Madison, see you again."
Yeah, see you.
Reluctantly leaving with Mom, an unfamiliar car pulled up. "Sorry to keep you waiting." A man, apparently Mom's acquaintance, was driving, and she opened the car door. I instinctively resisted getting into the car with a stranger. "Stop dawdling and get in." Mom's tone was unlike anything I'd heard from her before, and I reluctantly got in the car. The car drove in the opposite direction from our home, and I just watched the passing scenery outside. Feeling a bit scared in a car, not knowing where we were heading. "We're here. Get out now." As I was told to get off, there was a large building and I had no idea where I was. "Mom, where are we?" I asked, and Mom, lighting a cigarette, replied, "Kids are a nuisance, so off to the facility you go." "What?" Not understanding what I was told, a strange man and Mom drove away. I tried to chase the car for a while, but obviously couldn't catch up and gave up when I tripped. Lost and not knowing where to go, I was heading back to where I was left. Then, a car stopped beside me. The window rolled down and it was my aunt in the driver's seat.
Never thought it'd come to this. "Madison, get in."
Relieved to see my aunt, I quickly got into the car. She stroked my head and I cried quietly as my tension melted away.
"How many times are you going to cry today, poor thing?"
Riding in my aunt's car, we arrived at a house. It seemed to be her home. As I was told to come in. "Welcome home." A man's voice greeted us. I instinctively hid behind my aunt. "It's okay." Who laughed and said. I nervously looked at the man, a young guy standing and smiling at me. "Sorry, got you scared, huh? I'm this lady's husband. I guess I'm your uncle, in a way." He extended his hand for a handshake. Comforted by his kind face, I shook his hand, and he smiled again. "You must be hungry, right? We've got dinner ready, you need to eat a lot to grow." Annoying, just like Mom. Hearing their cheerful conversation, I couldn't help but smile too. Then my stomach growled, making me feel embarrassed, and they both burst into laughter. And so, I had a fun dinner time for the first time in a while. After dinner, they let me take a bath and even prepared pajamas for me. Then, "Come here." As I was invited to the living room, they had prepared hot milk for me. "Hot milk? Aren't you too old for that, Madison?" "Hey! Don't kids love hot milk?" "No?" In such a cozy atmosphere, I found myself laughing along. And they laughed with me. Then, "Sit down, we have something to talk about." As I sat down in front of the hot milk, they began to speak.
"Hey Madison, how about becoming our child?"
I was about to drink my milk and choked on these words.
"What?"
Sorry. It was abrupt, wasn't it? My uncle patted my back. My aunt laughed.
"Become our kid. You don't want to go back to that kind of mom, do you?"
I was deep in thought. I didn't hate Mom. But thinking about what happened at home, Dad, and being abandoned, I was honestly scared to go back to her.
"Actually, we've been in touch with your dad."
"What?" I was surprised to hear Dad's name. My aunt explained in detail. The person with Mom was her affair partner, and Dad had realized Mom was cheating. He was very worried about me. Dad's illness had gotten serious, and he might not have long left. He asked them to take care of me after he's gone. Hearing this, I couldn't stop my tears and desperately wanted to see him.
Your dad cared a lot about you and loved you.
My aunt's warm hand stroking my head made me internally shout thank you to Dad multiple times. Dear Dad. Fun-loving Dad. I decided to become strong for Dad. I want to stay with you too. Hearing this, both my aunt and uncle were happy. Staying with them would require some paperwork and might take a while, but they said it was fine to stay together until then. I decided to help out my aunt and uncle as much as I could. Helping with breakfast and dinner, cleaning the bathroom and toilet, until they started worrying that I was doing too much. Told to play like a grade schooler, I couldn't think of anything to do, so I decided to start on my homework.
Madison, were you always doing chores at home?
I was asked by my aunt during dinner. When I nodded, my uncle sitting next to me hugged me.
You've had it tough for a grade schooler. It's normal to help out. But I'm worried you've been pushing yourself too hard.
Indeed, maybe I was trying too hard to get praise from Mom. Realizing something I hadn't been aware of before, I fell silent. All that effort, never praised. I guess she never really cared.
You don't have to worry about anything here. You can help out, but what you should focus on are friends, school, and yourself. Take care of yourself.
My aunt's words resonated with me. My uncle, looking like he might cry, nodded repeatedly. I felt so happy to be with them. 2 weeks after Dad's funeral, I was called to the staff room at school. Wondering what it was about, I was told that Mom had called. The teachers probably didn't know the full story. Thinking it would trouble them if I didn't answer, I picked up the phone with trembling hands. Hello. Madison. Answer the phone quickly. Her voice, which I hadn't heard in a long time, was a shout, just like before. Where are you? You're not at the facility I left you at. I couldn't find my voice and remained silent. Are you listening? Well, never mind. I'm coming to pick you up. Then I'll get some allowance money. I need money right now. Hearing this, I felt my feelings for her cool. To think I wanted love, praise, and even betrayed Dad for someone like this. I was filled with regret. Now I have my aunt and uncle. I have a place where I belong. Dad is watching over me. I can be strong.
I don't have a mom, do I?
Before I knew it, I had said that to her. What? What are you talking about?
You must be mistaken. Goodbye.
Wait. I hung up the phone on my own. The teacher beside me looked shocked and asked,
Wasn't that your mom?
To which?
It was a stranger.
I replied. The call was treated as a suspicious call, and the school issued a warning. Worried that Mom might come to pick me up, I called my aunt from the school's payphone. My aunt said she would come right away and soon arrived. She explained the situation to the teachers, who contacted the child welfare office. After I went home, Mom apparently did come to pick me up, but the teachers handled it, and she left reluctantly with a dissatisfied look. Mom never stormed into the school again, but just to be safe, my aunt or uncle started picking me up before school ended. I felt sorry, but my aunt and uncle said, Don't worry about it. With a smile. Thanks to them, I am living happy days. The teachers at school are also looking out for me, and I'm glad to have so many allies around me. Then, one day, a little while later, the phone rang at home. Lately, I've been answering calls to my aunt and uncle's house. So, as usual, I answered the phone. Hello. The voice I heard was one I didn't want to hear. Oh, Madison? So you were there after all. I froze, recognizing it was Mom. How did she know I was here? Nobody should have told her. Come back quickly. Things are tough here. She spoke unilaterally to my silence. According to her, her affair partner's company had gone bankrupt and they were out of money. If she was with me, she could get government assistance and couldn't live without it. She said she was in a de facto marriage with her affair partner and was considering breaking up if they couldn't survive financially. I couldn't quite grasp the story, only understanding that she needed me for money. That's what she had said when she called the school too, so she must be really out of money. As I remained silent, she got increasingly irritated. As I was being yelled at, the phone was taken from me. Turning around in surprise, there stood my aunt, smiling at me. But in the next moment, her face turned into a frightening one.
Answer when spoken to. Are you listening?
Enough.
I can hear you even without the yelling.
What? Mom's voice, audible over the phone, suddenly stopped. I was tense.
Aren't you ashamed to be a mother? Telling your daughter to come back just for money?
That's ridiculous. What do you think Madison is?
You are none of your business. Madison is my daughter. Give her back.
Who was it that left your daughter in front of a facility?
Don't talk so high and mighty. I'll tell the police. Say that she was kidnapped.
Go ahead, say it. We have evidence of the terrible things you've done to Madison. Actually, please tell the police. It might solve things quicker.
What did you say?
Listening to the argument between my aunt and Mom, I felt a bit down, like I was causing trouble. Then, my uncle, who had returned at some point, patted my head from behind.
It's okay. Leave it to us. It's time for the adults to step in.
Saying that, he took my hand and made hot milk again. Madison likes hot milk, right? You drink quite a lot of it.
Yeah.
I thought it was delicious the first time I tried it. That's why I like it. Hearing this, my uncle smiled happily. After a while, my aunt came back to the living room. Seeing my worried look, she awkwardly patted my head. What's with that face? Don't worry. She's no match for me. While fixing my hair.
Thank you,
I said to her. Then I helped with dinner preparation. I never knew helping out could be so enjoyable until I came to my aunt and uncle's house. A few days later, when the phone rang, it was Mom again. Even though my aunt and uncle told me not to answer the phone anymore, I wanted to help them in some way. Madison? Mom is really in trouble. I need your help.
Like I said before, I don't have a mom. Well, what an ungrateful child. Weren't you raised by Mom? Have you forgotten the happy days spent with Dad and me?
The mention of Dad surprised and irritated me. I had fun when Dad was with me. But the kind one was only Dad. Mom abandoned me. I was surprised at how loud my voice was when I spoke up. Then I felt my mood clearing. From then on, I talked back to everything she said.
Are you even my child? I didn't abandon you. I just left you there.
You said, kids are a nuisance, so go to the facility. You said it while laughing. Such a person is not a mom.
I was forced to say that. It's not my fault.
Still, I was abandoned. So I don't have a mom. If I have a mom, it's Abigail. Dad is Timothy and my deceased dad.
Are you brainwashed? Stop talking nonsense and come back quickly.
Before I knew it, I was arguing with Mom while crying. But strangely, I felt lighter, as if I had been holding back a lot until now.
At least, let me live in the house you're staying in. I can't even eat if things stay like this.
No. Don't bother the people I love. Suddenly feeling someone's presence, I turned around to see my aunt and uncle standing there. My aunt patted my head. Well said. My uncle nodded, almost crying. Then my aunt took over the phone, talking to Mom. She seemed strangely happy. According to my uncle, he was happy to hear my words.
I'm glad to be called Dad.
He also said to me. It was something I said on my own, but if they're happy, maybe it's okay to think that way? I felt happy too. After that, there were no more calls from Mom for a while. Probably thanks to my aunt and uncle. Since I started living with them, they bought me a mobile phone. I was so excited to have my first mobile phone, and I exchanged contact information with friends who had phones, enjoying more than ever before. On a day of continued peace, the house phone, unusually, rang. Since the incident with Mom, the school had started contacting my aunt or uncle's mobile phones, and I had been given a mobile phone, so calls from friends came to my mobile. Wondering who it could be, I answered hesitantly. Hello. Contrary to my high spirits, the person on the other end sounded very down. Hello, it's me. At first, I didn't recognize who it was and thought it might be a wrong number. I had been told at school not to talk to strangers, so I was about to hang up. It's Mom. You've forgotten my voice? Ah. Upon hearing this, I listened carefully. And indeed, it was Mom's voice, but so lacking in energy that I had not recognized it. You're already in 6th grade, aren't you? There's no one else here right now. Saying that made Mom start to cry. I was stuck, not knowing what to do. Actually, I'm in the hospital. I've fallen ill. What? Hearing about her being sick and in the hospital made me think of Dad. Now, recalling him doesn't make me sad. Rather, I feel energized by the good memories he left me. No one is here to take care of me. Could you come and take care of Mom? And the hospital bills are piling up. I can't pay them. Can you ask Abigail for me? Say something, will you? Why should I, a stranger, take care of you? What? I refuse to pay for the hospital bills. And I won't tell Abigail. Don't get cheeky with me. Don't get too big for your britches. She sounded too energetic for a sick person. Hearing about Mom being ill didn't shake me like it did when Dad was sick. My feelings for her had truly cooled off inside me. No matter what she said, I no longer felt fear. I didn't want to complain or say anything. Just felt sorry for her. I vowed never to become like her, even when I grow up. I was surprised at how coldly I could respond. I've been given a mobile phone. And we hardly use the house phone anymore, so it's likely going to be disconnected. So this is really goodbye. Hearing this, Mom panicked. Don't say that. Please? Oh, then give me your mobile number. That's impossible. There's really no one to take care of me. No one to help with money. Then I'll contact someone who seems like they could help. Mom seemed a bit mistaken by my words, sounding slightly hopeful. Hearing her hopeful voice made me sigh. I asked for the name of the hospital and hung up. Then immediately contacted my aunt. I told her about the conversation, and she worried about me but praised me for handling it well. When I made a request, she agreed and quickly contacted someone. Just as I told Mom, someone who might take care of her. A few days later, I noticed the house phone ringing persistently. It was probably Mom, I thought, and I didn't answer. It continued until night, even when my aunt and uncle came home. When I mentioned the constant ringing, my aunt sighed and answered the phone. Sure enough, it was Mom, and my aunt ended up in a battle with her. Mom kept demanding to talk to me, and my aunt refused. Mom's voice, overheard through the phone. I didn't hear that my brother was coming. Why did you call him? She sounded panicked that her own brother had shown up. The person I asked to contact my aunt was Mom's brother. I had remembered hearing before that Mom greatly disliked her brother. He was described as very stubborn, a person of deep loyalty and sentiment. Therefore, her affair was something that couldn't be tolerated. Her brother, having heard about it from my aunt, seemed furious and said he would come to pick her up immediately. Their sibling reunion after several years turned out to be a disaster. That seemed to have directed her anger towards us. My aunt, who had been battling with Mom, was unusually replaced by my uncle who said, "Let me handle this." He is usually very kind, so I wondered if he could handle Mom, but as soon as he took over, his expression became fierce. He's scarier than me when he gets angry. My aunt whispered to me. Hey, cut it out. If you're so eager to talk, I'll tell you. I'll make you apologize in front of Madison. Sick or not, it doesn't matter. Be ready. My uncle yelled, and then apparently Mom hung up the phone. She hung up. After the call, my uncle was his usual self, laughing. It seems true that people who rarely get angry can be frightening when they do. After that, Mom was forcibly taken to her brother's house. It turned out that her illness was something that could be cured quickly, and she was able to leave the hospital soon. Mom, who had planned a lavish life with her affair partner, was taken to her brother's farm and had to help with farm work while living there. She initially resisted the farm work, but under her brother's pressure, she begrudgingly worked. Of course, she couldn't afford to buy luxury brands anymore and had to use second-hand clothes given by the villagers. As for me, it seems that all the paperwork was completed, and I was able to become the child of my aunt and uncle. They threw a celebration party for me, and I laughed more than ever before. And surprisingly, I found out that next year I would have a little brother or sister, which made me very happy. I resolved to cherish my family. From the bottom of my heart, that's what I think.
Are you trying to ruin our wedding? It's not like that. I just wanted to say that you're spending too much money unnecessarily. I know you are poor, but Ryan is going to be the next president of the company, right? He doesn't need to worry about money. Even if he is the next president, this is too much. That's not true. I just wanted to see your happy face, and when I told Ryan that, he was willing to do anything I said. What?
It seems he really likes you.
He generously spent money whenever it was for you.
Her words hit me like a stab with a knife. As I looked at her face in surprise, and she looked back at me with a sly smile.
You took advantage of his feelings for me.
Anger welled up inside me. To that, Jessica added another shocking statement.
So what? If you're going to complain more, can you please leave? We don't need a low-educated, poor mother. Please don't associate with us ever again.
Her words, filled with a sense of superiority, rapidly fueled my anger. I won't forgive this. Enjoy your triumph while it lasts. As she walked away looking down on me, I stared at her back, making a firm resolution to attend the reception. My name is Amy. I was widowed and now live with my son Ryan. My parents' home was poor, so I started working right after graduating from junior high. Later, I met and married a man who started his own company. Decades later, even when my husband's business stabilized and we had more financial freedom, my habit of saving remained, and I still live that way today. Neither my husband nor Ryan ever spoke ill of my frugality. Instead, they accepted it and joined me in being economical. Ryan, with his generous nature, even now as a working adult, accepts my frugality without complaint. After my husband passed away, the company is now led by my brother-in-law, Dylan, as the president. Ryan works there and is a candidate for the next president. Despite this, he hasn't let it go to his head and continues to live as usual. He, whom I raised alone after my husband's death, is my pride and joy. Sometimes I worry that he's too considerate and putting himself under strain, but his kindness is also something I'm proud of. Since working for the company, he has become even more independent, and recently he has become a very reliable man. So, when he told me he had a girlfriend, I felt a bit lonely, but I was happy enough to genuinely wish them well.
She was introduced to me by a friend, and she's really a great person.
He spoke with joy, and I smiled back.
I want to start a family soon to give Mom peace of mind. That's why I'm thinking about marrying my girlfriend.
Oh, thank you. But you haven't been together that long, right? Don't rush into marriage just because you're worried about me. It's your life, Ryan. Make sure you make the decision for yourself. It's heartwarming to know he cares about me. But I didn't want him to choose his life partner just to reassure his mother. However, knowing that he has a girlfriend, seeing how happy he is, and above all, realizing how much he thinks of me, warms my heart. I thought to myself how lucky I am to have him. 6 months after hearing about his girlfriend, they seemed really serious about marriage, and he said she would be coming to our house. Though he had spoken about his girlfriend Jessica before, this would be my first time meeting her. I was looking forward to meeting Jessica, who might become his wife.
Amy, is it true you didn't go to college? And yet you managed to raise such a fine child as Ryan.
This was said by Jessica after we introduced ourselves and chatted a bit, while Ryan had stepped away from the table. She looked at me with a provocative gaze.
Yes. He has really grown up to be a fine young man.
I barely managed to reply, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of discomfort from her words. Though she seemed to be praising him, I felt there was a mocking tone towards me.
Fine, huh? You don't hold back on the praise. Usually, people are more modest. Oh, maybe you don't know these common social norms, not having gone to college. What? Sorry, I was just wondering. It's really amazing, though. Raising a child in a fatherless home, I could never do that.
Her words said one thing, but her mouth was slightly smirking.
What were you two talking about?
When he returned and asked, she promptly replied.
We were just talking about how amazing Amy is for raising such a wonderful person like you. I really respect Amy.
She said this with a smile at me. But I felt a thorn in her words and couldn't help feeling uneasy.
That's right. He is going to be the next president, isn't he?
The conversation shifted to the future of the two of them, and inevitably to his upcoming promotion. Jessica seemed captivated by the idea of he becoming the next president. In contrast, he responded calmly.
It's just because my uncle is the president, and that's what people say. I'm still inexperienced and need to study and grow more. It's Dad's company, so I can't take over halfway and let it fail.
What?
But you'll become the president eventually, right?
She asked, a bit flustered.
I'll work hard to make that happen.
He replied with a smile, but she seemed somewhat unsatisfied.
Before talking about being president, I need to get promoted first. The responsibilities vary with each position, and I need to understand those roles too.
When I gave this advice, he nodded firmly. Her eyes sparkled again.
When you get promoted, your salary will increase, right? Since you're talked about as the next president, I guess your income will keep getting better.
Her interest seemed piqued by words like next president and salary. The discomfort I felt towards her remained even after she left.
Hey, I hate to say this, but do you think Jessica is marrying you for your money? She seemed really interested in your salary and the talk of you becoming the next president.
I couldn't help but ask him. It's his life and his family. I may not have a right to interfere, but I couldn't stay silent, considering his happiness. But Ryan denied it.
I don't think so. She is concerned about money because she plans to manage our finances after we get married. Finances are important in marriage.
Oh, so you two have talked it over.
Yeah. She said she would manage our finances after we marry. She's always been responsible, so it'll be fine.
If that's the case.
Mom, I'm 28 now. I'm an adult, so don't worry about me that much.
His smile swept away my worries. Seeing his expression, I came to a realization. Maybe I was just feeling something like jealousy towards her. Is this how a mother feels when her son is getting married? That thought strangely made sense to me. But I would later realize that this idea was a mistake. A year after meeting Jessica, their wedding is today. I don't know any details about the wedding. She asked me not to interfere too much. Indeed, the wedding is about the two of them, and it's an important event for their future married life. I decided to quietly watch over them and looked forward to this day. But, when I arrived at the venue, I was so surprised that I was rooted to the spot. Because the rented venue was decorated so lavishly, it was beyond what ordinary people could afford. In the waiting room, there was a quiz corner where guests could guess the color of the dress Jessica would wear for her dress change. I had seen such features in weddings before, but there was one clear difference this time. There were 2 dress changes, and the dresses were in 2 different colors. Furthermore, the menu listed ingredients that were extravagantly high-end. Even the entertainment included a professional magician. I had attended many weddings, but this was the first time I saw one so luxurious and obviously expensive. I never imagined experiencing this at my own son's wedding. It was just too much. Feeling anxious and worried about their wedding. I decided I had to talk to Ryan and headed to their waiting room. Then I saw Dylan and Jessica. She was humbly and politely responding to Dylan's congratulations.
Thank you so much. Please continue to look after him. I'll do my best to support him too.
Of course. We have high hopes for him. I'm counting on you as well.
Yes, I'll do my utmost.
As she smiled at me, Jessica's expression turned scornful in an instant. Feeling uneasy, I hurried over to her. Then I asked about the situation.
Jessica, it's been a while. You told me not to interfere too much, so I've been quiet, but isn't this too extravagant? One dress change is enough. The wedding should be more modest.
While I was flustered, she looked relaxed and unapologetically replied, "It's already decided. Bringing it up now is troublesome." My mind went blank, unable to find words. She then looked at me with the same provocative eyes as when we first met.
Are you trying to ruin our wedding? It's not like that. I just wanted to say that you're spending too much money unnecessarily. I know you are poor, but Ryan is going to be the next president, right? He doesn't need to worry about money. Even if he is the next president, this is too much.
That's not true.
I just wanted to see your happy face, and when I told him that, he was willing to do anything I said. What?
It seems he really likes you.
He generously spent money whenever it was for you.
Her words hit me like a stab with a knife. Shocked, I looked at her face, and she was giving me a disdainful look.
You took advantage of his feelings for me.
Anger welled up inside me. To that, she added another shocking statement. So what? If you're going to complain more, can you please leave? We don't need a low-educated, poor mother.
Please don't associate with us ever again.
Her words, filled with a sense of superiority, rapidly fueled my anger. I won't forgive this. Enjoy your triumph while it lasts. I, seething with anger but resolute, stared at her back as she walked away, looking down on me, and then I joined the reception.
May I now have Amy, the mother of the groom, come forward?
The MC announced, guiding me to the microphone. I knew I had to give a speech, as Ryan had informed me beforehand, but it seemed Jessica was unaware. The situation was different from what I had imagined. Jessica, who had told me to leave, was now silently exuding a disgruntled aura as I, who she told to leave, was about to give a speech. Thank you all for joining us today to celebrate the marriage of Ryan and Jessica. Ryan and I have always supported each other throughout our lives. I began my speech, sharing my thoughts about Ryan. After narrating old episodes, I continued.
However, it seems that from today, I must let go of him. Therefore, I am firing him.
The room erupted in murmurs. Dylan, along with other company attendees, looked shocked and confused. The noise in the room grew louder. Among them, Jessica was the first to speak out.
Fired? What are you talking about? Amy, who isn't even part of the company, can't make such decisions. You should think before you speak. Even as a mother, there are limits.
Jessica, what are you saying?
I am firing Ryan. You said you didn't need a low-educated, poor me, and told me to never associate with you again. That's...
Moreover, it seems you were only after his money.
And Ryan, choosing someone like you, I can't trust him anymore. That's why I am firing him.
My words intensified the murmurs in the room. Jessica, her harsh words exposed, turned red-faced. Ryan, glaring at her, questioned. What do you mean a low-educated, poor mom is unnecessary?
Did you say that to Mom? And about being after money. It's fine, isn't it? We're going to live together. We don't need your mom, who has neither education nor money. Even if she says that, she can't fire you.
Mom is the chairperson of my company.
What?
Her face, which was red, now turned pale upon hearing his words. In a clearly panicked tone, she responded.
But, you said she didn't go to college. How can someone like that be a chairperson?
That's the truth.
The company was started by Dad. Mom has been involved since its foundation. Now, she understands the company more than anyone and holds the real executive power. Why didn't you tell me such important things earlier? If you had, none of this would have happened.
Instead of apologizing, she began blaming him. But he looked at her with disdain.
I plan to tell you about the company's details eventually. But now, there's no need. The marriage is off, so there's no need to explain anymore. What? What do you mean the marriage is off? It's obvious. I can't marry you, who looks down on Mom and is only after money. The wedding is cancelled.
His voice carried an air of authority. Jessica, realizing the gravity of the situation, suddenly turned to me, desperately seeking support.
Please forgive me, Amy. I didn't know you were the chairperson, and I was terribly rude. I won't belittle you anymore,
she said, but of course, I had no intention of forgiving her.
That's impossible. You mean you would have continued to belittle me if I weren't the chairperson? I can't be family with someone who can't respect others and whose hobby is squandering money. Goodbye.
With that, I started to leave the venue. Following me, Dylan stood up, and then the other attendees began to prepare to leave.
Wait, please don't go, everyone!
She screamed, but no one even looked at her with sympathy. My relatives expressed relief that he hadn't married such a person, and Jessica's relatives looked utterly disgusted. Her friends, who had been condescending thinking she would become a CEO's wife, were also displeased with her recent attitude and quickly began to leave. Everyone left Jessica standing there, stunned. Ryan and I returned the wedding gifts, apologizing to the guests as we saw them off. After everyone had left, he muttered apologetically, "Mom, I'm sorry. I wanted to reassure you, but instead, it turned out we can't even work together anymore. That's why I told you not to worry about me so much. And about the firing, that's no longer happening." I said I couldn't trust you who choose a partner only after money. That's why I was going to fire you. But now that the marriage with Jessica is off, I won't fire you. He looked perplexed by my words.
Thank you, Mom. I'll work even harder from now on.
Your happiness is what matters most to me. I gently patted his back. Later, he officially broke off the engagement with Jessica, and they decided to split the wedding costs. Jessica had assumed Ryan would pay for the entire wedding and keep the gifts from her attendees for herself. Unable to pay her credit card bills for the esthetician, beauty salon, and other expenses, she ended up in debt. She, already unemployed and without money, hastily tried to marry for money again, but her next partner turned out to be a marriage scammer, further increasing her debt. Now, her whereabouts are unknown. Meanwhile, our family bond strengthened even more after this incident. Ryan seemed to respect me more than ever, now focusing on work rather than marriage to reassure me. Thanks to his dedication, the company grew even more. Recently, the president of a company we've long done business with introduced his daughter to Ryan. I've worked with his daughter a few times, and Ryan seems quite interested in this new acquaintance. It looks like a wonderful meeting for him, who has now fully grown into a fine man, and I'm excited for him. They say relationships based solely on money end when the money runs out. That's exactly why we cut ties with my husband's family. It's been a decade since we made that decision. My kids, myself, and even my husband William have kept our distance from them. You see, William used to be all about visiting his family for any little reason, but even he got fed up with their constant antics. His parents, who live with his brother Aiden and his wife, both had long careers as full-time employees and retired with a decent pension and retirement benefits. And Aiden, working at a major company, certainly isn't short on cash. Despite that, whenever they invite us out for a family lunch, they never offer to pay. Worse still, they always find some excuse to make us foot the bill for various things. They'd ask us to order something online because they couldn't figure out how to do it, or to pick up groceries like salt, sugar, and other condiments because they'd run out. For instance, they insisted on a specific brand of steak sauce from a particular store, or a certain toilet paper brand, nothing else would do. There was a time I bought a different brand, and they dramatically sighed, saying it wasn't right, and insisted we take it back home because they apparently still had some. As annoying as that was, what irked me even more was that they never repaid any of the money for these advance purchases. Back then, being newly married, I didn't want to cause a fuss and just went along with their demands. Looking back, I really regret letting them take advantage of us like that. But you know, after over a year of this, anyone's patience would wear thin. I realized something had to change, so I finally brought up the money they owed us. Then, my mother-in-law Madison showed a surprised look and said,
"Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that."
I was relieved, thinking we'd finally get paid back, but she never seemed to intend to actually reimburse us. She just said it and left it at that. Despite our persistence, she made a clearly annoyed face and said,
"It's just some condiments and household items, no big deal."
When I kept insisting, she got frustrated and snapped,
"All right, I'll pay you. You're so persistent and annoying."
Then, she roughly opened her wallet and said,
"Sorry, looks like I don't have enough right now. I'll pay you later,"
and closed her wallet without waiting for a response. I just felt a strong sense of disgust. I glanced at some bills in her wallet. She must have had plenty of money to pay back. I thought about explaining the situation to my father-in-law Lucas and asking him to repay us. But he always says he knows nothing about the household finances because Madison handles them, and he doesn't want to get involved. Aiden avoids talking to us altogether, and whenever we visit, he just leaves. Fed up, I vented to William and demanded repayment, to which he said,
"It's just steak sauce and tissues, right? I'd get it if it was $1,000 or $2,000, but it's just small stuff. Don't get so worked up over little things. You'll get wrinkles."
Furious, I threw all the receipts and the total amount at him, asking if he could still say the same. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was probably around $1,000. William couldn't believe it was that much and kept denying it. But you see, ever since I was young, my parents taught me to be very strict about managing money. They always said not to lend or borrow money, even from close friends. And if I must, I was to always note the amount, date, and reason. Besides, preparing a promissory note as well. So, I had kept detailed notes of everything I had fronted for his family. After I showed him the receipts and notes, explaining everything in detail, his initial anger turned to disbelief, then annoyance, asking why steak sauce had to be so expensive. I told him, if it was out of goodwill, I wouldn't be asking for the money back. But this money was for things they specifically asked for and promised to repay. Not paying it back is like defaulting on a cash loan. And why do they always ask us when they live with Aiden? It's just not right. You're not listening to me anymore, so I want you to deal with it. From now on, I don't want anything to do with this. I want to save money for us." He fell silent, then weakly said,
"But my parents are relying on us. It'd be rude to turn them down, and we're not that close with Aiden and his family. Besides, we should help each other out in tough times, right?"
I snapped.
"That's something the person who received help should say. When have they ever helped us? They haven't, because they never have. I get you want to help your parents and feel needed, but I'm the one being sacrificed, not you. If you think using your wife to show filial piety is okay, you're very wrong. Enough is enough. If you insist, consider this repayment as severance money. From now on, if they ask for anything, it's on you. Use your own allowance, not the household budget. End of discussion."
And with that, I went straight to the bedroom and slept. I knew he was indecisive, but that was too much. Still, as long as he handles his family himself, I don't mind. Even with his flaws, he works hard and helps around the house, and without his family's interference, he's not a problem, so I haven't considered divorce. But if he ever uses our household funds without permission or makes me out to be the bad guy, I would have gone straight for divorce papers. Despite their continuous requests, I kept directing everything to William, telling his family to ask him instead. The in-laws were surprised by my sudden change in attitude, but as long as their needs were met, they seemed content. They started calling William directly for requests. It's frustrating that I'll never see the money we fronted again, but if just over $1,000 means no more involvement with his family, it's a small price to pay. William kept looking to me for help each time they contacted him, but I ignored it. He deserved it for not taking my concerns seriously. I thought it was just deserts. However, about 6 months after leaving everything to him, he finally admitted defeat. He came to me, nearly in tears, saying he couldn't deal with them anymore. Recently, they had asked him to pay for renovations to their house, and when he refused, they called him an ungrateful son and said they wished they hadn't had him. I was irked that we had always been there to help, and then he opened up about something he'd never told me before.
I've never said this before, but in my family, the eldest son is everything. Aiden is always praised, no matter what, while I've always been overlooked. Aiden would get whatever he wanted, but I only got hand-me-downs. He'd get game consoles, and I'd get, like a $10 gift card. So, when my parents started relying on me, I thought I was finally needed. But I guess I was just the spare kid all along. I wish I hadn't been born,
he said, apologizing for all the trouble he caused me. I was surprised by his revelation, but I wished he had confided in me sooner. That way, he wouldn't have had to suffer so much. We decided to cut ties with his family and communicated our decision. Despite William's insistence that he couldn't handle it anymore and suggesting they rely on Aiden, the in-laws refused, not wanting to inconvenience him. It was as if they thought it was okay to burden us instead. But even when we said that, they wouldn't listen. If William couldn't help them, they would call me, and if I refused, they'd go back to him. If we turned off our phones, they would come to our house, banging on the door and the doorbell, creating a scene. If we pretended not to be home, they'd even call my workplace for a welfare check. During that time, I got in touch with my high school friend Sophia, and we met up. I shared with her the bizarre actions of William's family, which led to her feeling disgusted and then sympathizing with us. She suggested, "People like that don't realize how they're perceived. They probably think it's normal for children to help their parents. Why don't you try doing the same to them? Maybe then they'll back off." I was surprised by her unexpected advice, but after parting with Sophia, I immediately discussed it with William, and we devised a plan to visit his family over the weekend. Thinking we were there to give them money, his parents were in a good mood. However, we said, "Actually, we've been affected by the economic downturn. Both of our salaries have been cut, and our bonuses are gone. Life is tough right now. We want children, but considering that, we're really short on funds. So, we were hoping for a little help. To start, we need salt, steak sauce, and oh, we're out of bread too. Here's a list of the specific brands we want." And we handed them a list with high-end brands. They got angry, saying it was pathetic that we couldn't afford such basic things and that everything on the list was expensive. So, I said, "But, Madison, you guys have asked us for similar things, right? Despite driving a luxury car and going on several trips a year. It's just salt and steak sauce, right? So it shouldn't be a problem, right?" Realizing they had done the same thing to us, they started panicking, talking about their savings for retirement and how buying multiple items would be expensive. We responded, "You've always told us we should help each other out in tough times. We've been supporting you for nearly 2 years, so you can do the same, right? That's why we can't afford to pay for your renovations. We came over unexpectedly today, so we'll leave now, but please buy these items by tomorrow." And we left the list with them before leaving their house. When the promised day arrived and we received no contact from William's family, I called to remind them. Madison complained about our seriousness and criticized us for lacking manners, so I retorted, "Are you saying you were aware of your lack of manners while repeatedly urging us?" Then she abruptly hung up. After several unsuccessful attempts to call back, William and I decided to visit his family after work. Madison, who hadn't expected us, let out a small scream upon seeing us. We forced our way in, declaring that we would stay until they prepared everything, which enraged Lucas. He told us not to say such pathetic things because it was shameful.
Man, isn't that something you can't say, Dad? You've been mooching off us, and when we ask for help, you act like you don't know us. That's even more shameful. We're just doing the same thing you've been doing to us. If you call that shameful, then you're the same. And Dad, you can't keep saying you're not involved. You've seen Mom asking us for help. Even if Mom asked, if she hasn't paid, it's normal for you to cover it.
William argued. They both fell silent. They finally gave up and promised to have everything ready by the next visit, asking us to leave for the day. I emphasized our request firmly before we left. On the day of collection, all the items they had prepared were the cheapest brands from a supermarket. Even though I was okay with that, I let out an exaggerated sigh and said, "No, they are not what we asked for, is it? It's clearly written here. We don't need these then. We'll leave them here." And I left the items there. That night, they called William to complain, but when he pointed out that they had done the same, they hung up. After repeating it a few times, they seemed to be mentally exhausted. They had changed the locks of their house, so William started ringing the doorbell and shouting outside, pretending to be worried. When neighbors came out asking what was happening and William pretended to be concerned that they might have collapsed inside, the worried neighbors gathered, and the panicked in-laws eventually came out. Seeing them safe, William feigned relief and that they were awkwardly praised by the neighbors. With the neighbors on our side, they finally gave in after just 3 months. They apologized for their rudeness and agreed to repay us, asking us to stop. I replied, "What are you talking about? It's only been 3 months. You're making it sound like we're crazy, but you were the ones banging on doors and calling my workplace. We'll bill you for the renovation costs in a year." After exchanging glances with William, they turned pale. They finally came to deeply apologize, asking us not to involve ourselves with them anymore, and handed over some money. They added a bit extra to the amount we had fronted. The bundle of bills was quite thick. Seeing the elderly couple trembling and pleading, we felt it was enough. Since they had declared disengagement, we told them we would never involve ourselves with them again and would not take care of them in their old age. And then William and I went home. Just 3 months, but it's still a big deal. It felt incredibly long. We didn't enjoy doing it, but if it was so effective, we should have tried it sooner. The unfamiliar effort took a toll on us, and after realizing we no longer had to deal with his family, all our strength left us, and we both ended up taking time off work due to ill health. I had never taken sick leave before, so my colleagues were surprised. When I returned and explained the battle with the in-laws, I received mixed reactions of disgust and admiration, with some saying my acting was too realistic and creepy. With the in-laws out of our lives, we finally restarted our life as a couple. Thanks to reduced stress, we joyfully discovered I was pregnant just a year after cutting ties. We celebrated, feeling that letting go of bad ties had brought good fortune. We didn't tell the in-laws about the birth, raised our child with help from my family, and despite the challenges of first-time parenting and some marital disputes, we managed to overcome them. Having successfully completed our strategy against them, we gained strange confidence that we would be okay. Later, when our first child was 3 years old, I became pregnant with our second, and eventually, we became parents of 3, leading a fulfilling life. We couldn't afford the luxury like the in-laws, but it was no problem compared to being mooched off by them. We didn't know about their situation for a while after cutting ties, but about 5 years later, we heard details from one of William's relatives. Lucas had been having an affair with a younger woman and squandering money on her. Aiden and his wife both were caught cheating, and the over 40 wife got pregnant with her lover's child. Aiden didn't get fired but was demoted with a significant salary cut, and his wife eventually chose her lover and ran away, leaving only divorce papers behind. It sounded like something out of drama series, but it turned out to be true. Neighbors mentioned hearing them arguing constantly, and Madison, venting to the neighborhood, had told them everything. So, I shared our past experiences with the in-laws with the neighbors, who expressed clear disgust. I accidentally mentioned it to a gossip-loving neighbor, and it seems that the story about why we cut ties with them spread throughout the neighborhood. Now, even years later, they are treated with more caution than necessary, with everyone thinking that family is crazy. Well, I just mentioned it without thinking, but I never promised not to tell others, and I only spoke the truth. Moreover, since they always flaunted their wealth and were disliked by relatives, those relatives now keep their distance, knowing that involvement with them leads to no good. The in-laws, somehow finding out we had a child, contacted us once, asking why we hadn't told them. I responded with maximum enthusiasm. "Oh, are you going to buy us baby goods? Thank you so much. I'll send you a wish list later." But suddenly the call was disconnected. They promised not to contact us, did they? Since then, there has been absolutely no contact from them, and it continues to this day. Our children have grown up. The eldest is now preparing for high school entrance. We've sometimes wondered if it's unfair to the kids not to know their paternal grandparents, but they seem fine, so we reassure ourselves that it's for the best. William ensures he doesn't repeat his family's mistakes and showers equal love on all our children. We've also agreed to be self-reliant in our old age and not to burden our children. While we used to be troubled by the issues with his family, now it seems like it might have been a good experience, in a way. Still, it's definitely not something we'd want to go through again.